All right, modern day mystics, fellow truth seekers, James and Justin here, and we got another great interview on the docket today. We have Stewart Dixon from his YouTube channel, How to Be a Spiritual Badass. He is an author, storyteller, fisherman, spiritual teacher, and I'm really looking forward to this interview.
Yeah, this should be good.
Yeah, so let's get into it. Okay, so Jay, welcome. I thought maybe a great place to begin would be with kind of your story, how you got into spirituality, how you got to where you are now. Maybe you could kind of just lay out a little bit of a map there for our audience.
Sure thing. It's of course a story that I've told many, many times, and I'm happy to fill you in. It's a fairly typical story, fairly straightforward story. I got into spirituality because I was depressed. When I got to college, I think I lasted maybe a semester or two before I started really getting unhappy about friend groups, about where all this was headed, about who I was, just this disconcerting feeling that something was wrong, something was missing, and it just eventually led to this ongoing state of feeling depressed, collapsed, isolated, feeling unhappy, feeling that I wasn't okay. I was born on the wrong damn planet. And I just had I guess I was, I don't really know why. I wasn't interested in Prozac or pharmaceuticals or conventional Western therapy. I just smelled a rat there, I think. I smelled a treadmill that felt as though I was not likely, if I got on it, I was not likely to get off of it, and I just didn't want that. And my dad had gotten had read a few books on spirituality, and so I thought, well, okay, I'll give this a whirl, and is there anything to it? And I was like basically, at this time, freshman year of college, atheist / agnostic. So I tried a few spiritual things, some meditation techniques, and I got into out-of-body experiences. And I had a few out-of-body experiences that really, I was able to repeat them. It'd have been one thing if I just had one, and you could write that off. But I had a number of them, and that was enough proof for me to say, okay, there is something to spirituality. There's more than this. Just this meat bag, and all the problems that go with it. So in light of that, I moved forward and spent about I was 18 or so at the time, 20 years involved with spirituality. And in the first couple of years, I was interested in yoga and meditation and all the typical types of things that had to do with energy work and again, out-of-body experiences. And that led into more serious Zen type of self-inquiry, non-duality self-inquiry. And I just kind of happened to my spiritual path and the path of many teachers that had gone to India and come back to the United States began, and the whole Neo-Advaita Vedanta non-duality thing began in the 90s, which is when my search kind of coincided with them appearing. So it was very early on, in my early 20s, I got involved with non-dual teachers. This is before any of this shit was popular, before any of it had gone mainstream, if you could call it that, before the Eckhart Tolles, before Adyashanti.
No internet for that to
no
spread.
Internet.
Yeah.
No internet. And yeah. And so I had to it was through books that I'd find at used bookstores. It was through word of mouth. This teacher has a group of students who are waking up, and I would fly all over the place. I didn't have much money, and but I did have time because I was self-employed. I had an aquarium cleaning service when I was in my 20s. I set up and maintained aquariums and fish tanks. I've always had a love of fishing and
That's
fish.
cool.
Yeah, it was great. It was so I was free in my time. I didn't have much money. I wasn't getting rich off this, but once or twice a year I could afford to fly to California, or visit a teacher in New York if they were speaking, because a lot of these guys would tour, and you could get them to come to your house. Basically, they would you'd promote their little thing at a local church, like a Unitarian church. They could stay with you, and I did a lot of that too, where they came to I lived in a rental home with some roommates, and they all thought I was crazy, and and would have these teachers come, and I would set up, one in particular. His name is Nick Arjuna Arda. He's fairly well known, and so I did a lot of that. So I did a lot of interaction with a lot of these, the non-dual invited teachers that I've spoken about in my videos, and it was I gained a lot from it. I learned to how do I put this? I'm not a guy who likes formal meditation. That's not my thing. It's not me. But I did learn to vicariously meditate with my eyes open and achieve sort of a deep state of relaxation, which definitely benefited me. And then with these teachers, and this was really, really valuable. One of the most valuable things is that I had many, many type of emotional gestalts with them. I mean, I would I would just allow myself for all my shadowy shit to come up. I cried, I laughed, I screamed, I yelled, and on numerous occasions. And that was of immense benefit too, because I found that when I was able to do that in these settings, there was something about doing that released a lot of this stuff that I was ignorant of, a lot of internal turmoil, internal wounds, internal just blocks and walls and stuff. And so when I started doing that with these teachers, of really just allowing my emotions to run free, it then freed up a lot of energy, and I found that I was able to actually relax and meditate even deeper. And that's what I did for a number of years. And then I started having these spontaneous, non-abiding awakening moments where I would attain this really present, dropping into the body, really beatific and delightful sense of everything, and of nature and reality. And it was just amazing. After you've walked in the fucking desert for years and years and years, and you have a drink of water, it really does smack you in the face and go, holy shit, this is what it is. And they wouldn't last. It'd be like I'd have that for an hour or two, and it would fade away, and then I'd keep going, and a year later I'd have something that would last for a day, and then something that would last for a week. So those were great pointers, these moments of non-dual awakening, that were really astounding, because I always thought that it was this thing that was way out there, and it was actually right here, present in the body. It was more like an animal awakening than it was some psychic, like clairvoyance, strange, ethereal, I've finally grasped my own self thingy and it's way out there. No, it wasn't like that. It was like coming into the body, being completely present, just like you're in a zone when you're like, when you're artistically at work, or you're on the basketball court, or you're fishing or whatever. It's like being in the zone. And these would come and go, and then and then they began to get more and more, and I'd have many of them, and sometimes they'd last for a week or two. And then I had one in 2010, and it was just like all the others. I sat down to my computer on some rainy, drizzly, horrible fall day, and just had to, as I told you before, I was an audio engineer, and I had to work up some invoices, and I just had no heart for it, no heart for much of anything. And I started perusing the internet, going through my spiritual porn and watching, I read some article, just found this article, and it just spoke to me. It was just the right time. It was just the right breeze that just blew the apple off the tree. And this is after years and years of being involved in this shit. And it wasn't anything that I'd heard before, that I hadn't heard before. There's no self. And it kind of just got me. There's no small self. There's no large self. There's no self. There's no this. It kind of just shut down all of my ideas and fantasies of ever getting anywhere, of ever arriving, of ever finding anything. And it was like utter and complete failure. There's none of it. None of it exists. It was like just it was just an end. And then what funny thing happened was, like, when I stopped all this forward momentum, then I ballooned into one of these states where I felt really good. My peripheral vision opened up, super relaxed, a sense of presence, a sense of peace, a sense of unity. And it took me a while to figure out that what I had wanted all along in spirituality, I had finally attained. And because I was not interested, really truthfully, in awakening. I wasn't interested in being a saint. I wasn't interested in being a do-gooder. I wasn't interested in any of that shit. I was interested in my depression fucking going away. I just wanted to just leave me the fuck alone. I want to feel okay. I want to feel like I'm okay in my own skin, and that I have a sense of equanimity, a sense of balance, a sense of wholeness, a sense of peace, and that's subtly what I realized had happened. And it wasn't demonstrative. It wasn't fireworks or anything. It was just what was consistently always there in the background was this nagging sense of depression. It had now been replaced by a sense of okayness and freedom. What you learn, of course, in non-duality, and what you learn in self-inquiry is that there's a part of you that is aware, that is that is the witnessing, watching part, and you draw that, ego's here, and you draw that witnessing, watching front, up closer. You become more intimate with it, and then it just flips, so that awareness, now that that's who you are, and along with that knowing comes a great sense of like everything is okay, and everything's fine, and it'll all work out in the end. And then ego, I've never taught this, never written about it. My ego didn't like dissolve and go away. It was still there. You need ego. No problem with ego. It was just now ego was just in the background, and not really a problem. I'm still an idiot. I still, ask my wife if I have an ego. Yeah, absolutely. I still stick my foot in my mouth and do stupid things, and I still have desires and wants and needs of, I got a mortgage to pay, and I have to work for a living too. So all that's there. I get frustrated. I get angry. So I guess I'm the spokesman for dispelling. That's my story. And because of my story, I just have become the spokesman for selling this shit in a way that is, I hope, and I think it works. Just more down to earth, more raw, more real, without all the overblown.
It's relatable. From what I've seen, it seems like there's a lot of people are on their journeys. They're doing what they're doing, and probably when they hear a story like yours, it probably gives them a bit of hope. I was reminded, for some reason, of an Osho reaction that we did too, where at the end of his spiel, he was like, "Just hang around, don't leave. Just keep, just be patient. Just keep doing what you're doing. It'll, And I guess, there's a time, I guess, maybe to put some action in and make some steps. But I think what he was trying to say was like, don't give up. Just, it'll come. Just be patient. It'll come.
Yeah, I don't. I think there's this. It's very natural when one gets involved in spirituality to want to climb up the top of the big old mountain and experience the infinitude of life, and to grab onto this greatness, and to make it your own, and to be better than everyone else, and to have a sense you're the all-knowing wise one, and come and bow before me,
Sometimes I play it up. Like there's been like sometimes because you think of somebody like Osho and he always looks sort of sleepy. So in some of our other videos, I'll be like wearing pajamas, but it's like I don't know if everybody gets the joke, but sometimes it's like I'm gonna be so grandiose because it satiates the part of my ego that is an egomaniac, and it's hilarious. Like some of these people are dressed like wizards.
Namaste, motherfuckers. And you guys laughed at this in my video the other day. It was like
staring.
Long pauses.
Yeah.
Feel it, baby. Oh yeah, I'm feeling so. I actually bitched to one of these teachers I was with. I did this. It was a lovely retreat. It was fucking awesome. We did this. We were in canoes on the Green River in Canyonlands in Utah. And it was fucking amazing, right? For 10 days. It was just like this retreat with this teacher. But at one point he's like all like sugary, gooey, feeling so good. And, and he's thinking that the rest of us are feeling this way. And I came on in this retreat because I was very specifically not fucking feeling that way. I was feeling way out of sorts. I was feeling like, is this shit ever going to end? I'm sick and tired of the dark night of the soul. I'm sick and tired of being miserable. And I was like, no. I said to him point blank, I was like, I don't feel your gooiness that you're feeling right now, motherfucker. I'm like, I feel like shit, and I am not I'm not feeling what you're feeling. Don't assume that I am like feeling what you're feeling, because I'm not.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, that I think is when I watch so many of the Advaita or non-dual teachers right now on YouTube, I get the sense that they just are like totally out of relationship with who it is that they're speaking to when they got the little stool next to them with their flowers and their picture of their guru, usually Ramana Maharshi, and they take these deep breaths, and it's just like, I get it.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like somebody can be soothing if they're calm and I'm frantic, but I definitely get what you're saying when it's like, you just need to stare into your master's eyes longer and pick up what I'm radiating. It's like, help me!
And funny enough, you do get to that point.
Yes.
Where like you've heard all the words, all the vernacular, that all the double speak, you are that, and there's nothing to arrive to, and stop seeking, and you've heard it all. And you're really only going to go hang out with these teachers because they do have a good vibe. And there is something, and again, when you've been in the desert for so long, a little bit of water is a good thing, and sometimes it's good to receive that water with this very gently.
But things are also funny, and it's sometimes funny to point out awkwardness or whatever.
Yeah, it can get a little syrupy and a little sugary, and I think my gripe about it, you see, is that when you unconsciously, subconsciously, as a teacher, that's the only mode that you teach in, is this, is that mode. All your students are going to think that that's what awakening is. That's what the goal is for you to put on a shit-eating grin all the time, to be always peaceful, always mindful, always aware, and this perfect sense of equanimity. And I'm sorry, for 99% of us schmucks, that's not the case.
Oh, and then you look at, it's not like there aren't stories of ancient monks and stuff that was like, and this was like the drunk monk, and this was the guy who was known for having temper tantrums.
Well, even Osho, I mean, you talk about a guy with flaws. Holy shit.
He was like stabbed.
Yeah.
Stabbed? What?
At one point in his younger years, I heard once that he was stabbed, and then I mean, by the end of his, the only reason I bring that up is to say like you can't say, oh, there's a perfect way of living, and then everything works out. It's like his final days, he was, some people think that somebody poisoned his food. He was ill, whatever the way, however you want to slice it,
Yeah.
nearing his death, and ultimately he died. He didn't live forever like a
Yeah.
god. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
and there's many a number of
and I like Osho, by the way, just to.
yeah, I don't know how I feel about Osho. Um, he's a juggernaut that you can't deny. I will say that. He's had many, I've watched a number of his videos and read a number of his books. He's a juggernaut that you can't deny, that comes with a lot of baggage. And I think he was one of the last of the big gurus. And I also sat with one of the last of the big gurus. There's a teacher named Adi Da. You may or may not have heard of him. He's long since passed away, but he was also one of the last big American gurus who had gone to India and gotten the goods and then came back and taught. And he too had quite a bit of baggage. But paradoxically, lo and behold, I got to thank that guy for the early days when I was in spirituality. Really, really, I learned a lot of lessons from him, about who I was and what ego is and what mind is. So I think all of the, back to the video that I made about the cult of non-duality and kind of all the nitpickiness of it from the, pull out a couple thousand feet and it's all okay. It's all good. All teachers serve a purpose. And I don't have a grudge against really any of them in any way, shape, or form. I'm sure they're all serving their own purpose. I just so happen to be the way that I write and the videos that I make and the way that I teach is that I because I'm, again, I didn't get into this to be a teacher, really. I just was depressed and wanted out of depression. I try to keep it real, and the creative blue collar fisherman in me can't help to do other than that. And I think it works. I think it appeals to quite a few people.
I
And I
think it's
think,
needed, man. It
yeah,
sticks out, like that was what caught my eye because I like peruse YouTube looking, for new teachers and stuff like that. I came across that video and I was like, oh, this is something different. And that's kind of one of my gripes. And I think one of the things we try to reflect on this show when we're talking is kind of like that blue collar, more relatability. Like, what is the guy that's working, not even the 9 to 5, more like the, 7 to 7, what's his chance at, being liberated or like, coming across something like this and, something being, stimulated or triggered, setting them, because that's kind of the world I come from, man. Like, long days, man.
One of the things you said so many interesting things. I hope we get around to mentioning, but you said so much interesting things. But one of the things was, I think it's important that you were like, when this thing ballooned out and my periphery opened up and I was finally felt okay with things, and it wasn't a out there thing. It was a more in the present thing. And that you coupled it with saying, I wasn't after becoming grandiose. I was after ending this like extreme sorrow that I was in. Yeah. I think that there's like so much pause for people. I think there's a lot of people that would resonate with. They're like, I'm not looking to grandiose. I just don't want to suffer. And why does it have to be so epic? It's more realistic that I've turned a corner here, and lo and behold, it's
that's what most. I so agree with that. Most people are just hurting. They get involved in spirituality. It resonates with them because they're hurting. They have anxiety. They have stress. They have they have PTSD. They might suffer from addiction of one variety or another. Yeah. Life is fucking hard, man. I mean, it gets us all, and I think that when we can. When those of us were and are fortunate enough to make our way through the the miasmic swamp of spirituality and actually arrive on the other side of it with, a little sanity. Those of us who are fortunate enough to actually benefit from it and then turn around and come back, we often we need to remember that it's just the next step. It's just hurting. It's just suffering, and it's just this anxiety and whatnot that most people come to spirituality with. So it's about speaking to that hurting person and fist bumping them in all ways. Say, hey, brother, yeah, I feel you, man. Like, yeah, fuck. It's tough. We're like, how in the world are you going to squeeze spirituality when you're barely paying your bills?
Yeah.
How in the world are you going to squeeze spirituality in when you're so anxious, you're so like in your head and addicted to this and that and the other thing that it's hard to even just get out of that. So how do you do that? Where, and all I could do, I think when I started writing Spirituality for Badasses is put myself in their shoes and just say, yeah, man, let's talk real, let's deal with life on its in its roughest and most tumblest ways, and we can laugh about it and we can struggle together, and I'm with you, and because I was there and I still to a certain degree am still there. I'm not on some.
Connection to people is important, right? How much
Yeah,
are you, I'm all for it if somebody is the real deal and they're radiating love, and you can go there and you can osmosisly pick up some of their love or whatever. I'm for it. But
yeah,
we also need connection. We also need to be able to look
yeah,
in people's eyes, like you said, and fist bump each other and stuff.
yeah. Yeah, I think keeping it real is very, very important. When I ever do offer criticism about other teachings or other teachers or other pathways, I try to be very careful to say, well, on the one hand, it's they're not all bad.
Mm-hmm.
They're benefiting somebody. And then, but one of the things that I say that, but if I go ahead and one of my most common criticisms is that a lot of the teachers they're teaching 11th and 12th grade principles to people who are just arriving to spirituality
Yeah.
and are in the 4th or 5th grade. And you got to see the whole spectrum. Most people that are interested in spirituality, they're interested in mindfulness they're interested in feeling a little better.
Yeah, imagine somebody that's not there yet. Like, I believe the truth of somebody that has acquired an equanimity and then they're sincerely calm. But
Yeah,
imagine somebody that's not there yet and has got all kinds of demons yet to be exercised, like,
yeah.
pretending to be, in some state that they're not. Like, I don't know, maybe that's too
Well,
judgmental.
kind of that brings
That's
me
probably too
to
judgy.
maybe to a good question to ask would be, say someone like Justin comes, to the table.
Mm.
What is like one tool? What would you suggest to be like one place a person begins this journey? What's a
Oh,
good
sure.
place to start?
Sure. So in my line of work, what I basically recommend right at the start is a mindfulness based stress reduction course.
Yeah.
Are really awesome, and you can find those at a university or a college or at a hospital. They're ubiquitous. They're all over the United States right now, and they're probably, I would presume, in Canada as well. Any major city is going to have a mindfulness based stress reduction course. So mindfulness based stress reduction is um, the secular version and neuroscientific version of meditation that sprouted from one particular teacher, not teacher, I'm sorry, Dr. John Kabat-Zinn in the 90s. Was a doctor at I think it was at University of Massachusetts. It might have been Harvard, somewhere in Massachusetts, at any rate. So he was into Buddhism, and he started this whole study with meditation and with mindfulness, overcoming anxiety, overcoming PTSD, overcoming pain. He did this whole study that went on for quite a few years, and out of that came his course and his really genius idea about mindfulness-based stress reduction. How can we package this stuff in a way that is scientific, that is secular, that benefits a large swath of people? So that was when I discovered his work, and that as a popular thing came into our society. It was amazing to me because everything that I had been learning in circuitously through non-dual teachers and Advaita Vedanta teachers was very similar. Those non-dual teachers were also pointing to awareness. They were pointing to self-awareness, to the witnessing part of ourselves, and that's exactly what mindfulness-based stress reduction does. Is that it teaches you and gives you the tools to find that inner island of awareness. And okay, so that's what I would recommend.
Yeah.
On a broad is like someone do that, because you really, like, I could and I'll share with you a little technique here, but it really does require, I think it's like going to the gym, and there's a logical order to it where you really do need to apply some time to it and see how it benefits, see how it works, and kind of an unfolding process takes place. And that kind of course is a perfect environment to do that. So basically the most common exercise that they teach is something called a body scan, where your eyes are open. You can be lying down, you can be seated like this, and you simply go starting with your toes, and you notice every little single part of your body all the way up to the head and back. And you relax as you do that. And what that allows you to do is, if you do this body scan, it gets you in touch with your body, number one. Number two, it'll slowly over time get you in touch with your emotions, because your emotions are held in the body. There's parts where you've had where your stress is mostly kept. It's different for everybody, heart, stomach, wherever. And you slowly start to uncover emotions by doing this type of thing as well. And then you begin to see the mind and how it reacts and all of its machinations. Again, just by relaxing, just by this guided meditation that all these mindfulness-based stress reduction courses offer. And then out of all those three things, the body, the emotions, and the mind, you start to you run into this strange little thing where, like, what is doing the noticing here? What is that part that is actually noticing the body, that is noticing emotions, that is noticing the mind, that is what is the part that is noticing the noticer while you, the viewer out there in YouTube land, is watching this video? And to you guys, what is that part that is noticing right now that I'm speaking? You're noticing that you're hearing. And that's what's to be learned in a mindfulness course. And how fucking cool is that? No gurus required. No.
Who's noticing the noticer notice?
I don't know. Maybe we're at a whole other level. I mean, so that's the essence of it, and that's the and there's been permutations of that course. There's cognitive based, what is it called? Mindfulness based cognitive therapy, which also same type of thing, is that they're pulling you into noticing this internal observer in a secular way, which then helps you to, it's all about responding and not reacting, and gaining a little distance on the mind. That's where it starts, in my humble opinion.
Consciousness is so fascinating because and I'm not alone on this, but I've noticed, like, some people, like, wake up and be like, I live for that. I was no dreams. It's like, well, who is enjoying it? You know what I mean? It's like, I love being unconscious, sleeping. You know what I mean? It's just consciousness is just interesting, and the things that we do to try to not identify with all the suffering that can happen inside. And I think it's good, all the things that you can do to cover those needs. But we also like the fantastical around here. And at one point you mentioned that you achieved some out-of-body experiences. Are you comfortable talking about that? Because that's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. Um, I, I, I was so I read Journeys Out of the Body by Robert Monroe, which is a famous um, uh, one of the famous New Age, I guess you could call it, books that came out of the I think it was the late '70s that was published. Um, and here was a guy. He was also an audio engineer. He just so happens to live. His center, which is called the Monroe Institute, is actually about an hour and a half from here.
Cool.
And
It's even got a
yeah,
cool name. It's science fiction-y. The Monroe Institute, where they're doing
that's
crazy
right.
studies.
Yes, exactly. If you know anything about the Monroe Institute, they were the first to develop binaural beats, which
Yeah.
yeah, they developed binaural beats, which was hemisync technology, which is a 3 hertz wave in one ear and a usually it's like a 5 or 6 hertz in the other ear. And then what that does is that you can fine tune that to different frequencies so that when you listen to it lying prone on a bed, you go into delta wave, which is this hypnagogic state between sleep and dreaming, which is very conducive to out of body experiences. Um, so fucking genius from top
Yeah.
to bottom,
It's
right? This
crazy.
guy, this guy was just a businessman. He had a cable company and was an audio engineer, and he started having spontaneous out of body experiences. This is all in the book that in his journeys out of the body. And I was just smitten by it because he wasn't a guru, and that's what really attracted me to it. And he was practical, down to earth. So his works, I bought some of his tapes, some cassette tapes. That tells you how fucking fucking long ago this was. Cassette tapes. I bought these cassette tapes and I would listen to them, and that's the thing that induced the out of body experiences for me.
Oh, cool.
Was listening to these binaural beats, and so initially, if you want to get into the nitty gritty, I popped out of the body. I could look down. I could see myself sleeping. And that happened a number of times where I would float up, look back, see my body. And it was actually kind of scary because
I imagine.
it was scary the first I would have those experiences and I would immediately be frightened and I'd wake right back up. I was like, shit, what was that? And, my heart would be beating and it was very nerve wracking. We all fantasize about certain elements of spirituality, whether it's out of body experience or waking up or
Communicating with entities.
yeah, but when you really do it, it can be like, holy shit, you like, be careful what you ask for. So that I had that happen a bunch of times. And then eventually I had a small amount of like traveling out of the house, around the property. I had those, and once or twice I interacted with some other individuals.
Yeah.
So it was quite the thing. It was quite flabbergasting to me to discover that. I think once you've had a number of these, you easily fall out of your committed state of atheism and your committed state of agnosticism, even where you aren't sure if there's anything, where when you have that enough times where you're like, okay, there's something that transcends the body here.
Oh, yeah.
So that was my experience. And Robert Monroe was way cool. I actually eventually went and met him at I did a retreat for a week at his place. And so
It's amazing how hard that is to explain to people sometimes, that different states of consciousness, like Carl Jung, who's a scientific guy, when asked, like, do you believe in God? He was like, I know there's a God. And it's, I bet, I just imagine it's very hard for people to understand, what from their perspective, like, hey, you must have an angle, or you must be trying to trick me, or what's going on here when somebody has an altered state, whether that be, chemically induced or meditation induced or whatever it is, and somebody comes back and they're like, I don't know what that is. All I know is there's more to this than, like, I encountered something that logic doesn't suffice to explain.
Yeah.
That's got to be. It's just it's tricky.
But it's very rampant because it's like our culture, especially in the West, are inundated with like a materialist paradigm. Like, we're like pretty much since the cradle, like brainwashed to believe that there's nothing but, raw physical reality.
Yeah. I've had things happen where I felt as though that's the best I could say is if you'd experienced what I experienced there, I think you would be astounded. And sometimes you kind of want people to see that, but just so it'd be easier.
Oftentimes too, one's interest in spirituality really isn't propelled forward enough by suffering or there isn't enough impetus. In other words, you kind of have to want it. You have to really arrive to a place where you feel like I know conventional religion isn't going to do it for me.
Yeah.
And I've smoked enough pot now that I know that I like smoking pot, but the answers aren't there either.
Yeah.
So there's this forward momentum that is derived from this sense of unworthiness, or this sense of missing something, or this sense of pain, the sense of suffering that like you just can't help yourself. You're going to investigate. So what happens then is you put in the time and the work, and you actually do the crazy nut job things like listening to binaural beat tapes and going to the Monroe Institute and sitting with this particular awakened, spiritually enlightened teacher. What the fuck does that even mean? Where you take risks, where you're willing to, you're uncomfortable with your false self, the hatred and the like, the sick and tired of that is larger than your fear of the unknown. Is larger than your fear of being perceived or construed as crazy, or kind of like, what are my family going to think? What are my friends going to think? And you just don't give a flying fuck anymore, because that's how much pain you're in.
Right. And sometimes you encounter somebody that's not there, and you're almost like, good for you. Good for you for not needing to be a seeker.
Oh, totally. How I can relate to that. Holy shit. I can't tell you how many times I wish I could just be happy with a binge on Netflix, a couple of beers, and a football game.
I'll be happy when my check comes in.
Like that character in The Matrix, just give me my fucking steak, please. And the
I don't want to remember nothing.
Yeah. Well, I felt that. I still, guys, I still feel that way today. We're like I still have that part of like why do I have to be? Why is this? Why do I have to be called to this? Go to work like a normal guy. No, I got to write books about spirituality, and even worse than that, I have to be the black sheep amongst the spiritual, authors and teachers.
It's hilarious. I get exactly what you're saying. I feel like my entire life that's been the question. When I was a devout Christian, it was, why, God? Why am I not normal? Why can't I just have a more normal approach to this whole thing? And then after I, kind of stepped away from traditional Christianity and into looking into Eastern mysticism, it's that thing continues in a lot of ways, is the looking around and being, I'm open, God, puppeteer me around like a normal person, because I don't want to have this alternate perspective all the time.
I
don't know, maybe that's probably a lot of ego, but
no, I even if it is ego, who the fuck cares, right?
What if that's how it is.
Well, you have an interesting take on ego, because we've had quite a few people on the show now. We've had other spiritual teachers say that, because I've asked them straight out, so what's the use of the ego? And they've been, I've been told there is no use for it. So I know you have an interesting take. You have an alternate take on that.
One person said, you were like, is there anything good about the ego? And they were like,
no.
And I kind of got what he meant by that. I got by what he meant by, no, there's not anything good about the ego, but I want to
say what you have to say about it. I'm curious.
It's a paradox because with you know, okay, all right, okay, let's zoom out for a second and go all the way to the ultimate solipsistic bullshit ending of this drama, right? Which is there's just one thing here. There's just one God or Brahman or consciousness or awareness, right? Let's go all the way out. Okay, great, awesome. So there's just one dreamer having this fucking dream. That's great. So yet at the same time, there's all this stuff. There is reality. There's all these people. There is this dream going on. So this whatever this one thing or consciousness or awareness, it must not have been too satisfied. Must have been bored. So it's decided to stick its own head up its ass and have this dream, right?
Yeah.
And so okay. So here's I'm answering your question. I'm getting to ego. So here we are. We're all separate little egos running around. And so isn't this something that the great Godhead wanted, right? That the great Godhead out there stuck his head up his ass and said, I'm going to experience the finite because I am infinite and I must be infinitely fucking bored. So I'm going to stick my head up my ass and I'm going to experience what it's like to be a separate individual ego, right?
Yeah.
So, well, here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Welcome to the amusement park. And to bash this isn't ego isn't something. I get it, of course. You get tired of the amusement park, then ego has to go. I that was me. I was tired of the amusement park. Ego didn't go, but I definitely put the little bitch of ego in its place, right? But there's nothing wrong with ego. Ego is the thing that is enjoying this ride. Ego is the kind of like the substance of the drama. You can't have this drama. You can't have all of this display. Brahman can't have this dream without without the great goddess of Maya imbuing herself into ego. So ego is not to be bashed. Ego is to be kind of like in some strange backwards ass way, kind of like revered and just like, holy shit. What an amazing trick that is going on here.
Reveled in.
Yeah. So the ego only becomes a problem when you're tired of playing in the playground, when you get into this life. And I don't know why it happened to me, just like you guys, clearly it's happened to you where you're like, there's gotta be something more. Yeah. I'm kind of tired of the ups and downs of ego. I'm tired of even though it's a great adventure of this separate thing, I'm kind of tired of it. And is there anything more? So then you begin the process, yes, of peering beyond ego, of seeing if there is something more than this sense of separation, the sense of mind, of your own personal view about things. Is there an impersonal way to view everything? But up until that point, fuck it. Be a rock star. Make $1 million. Be a fisherman. Enjoy your family. Enjoy your life, and with its ups and downs. And there's nothing. It's all beautiful and wonderful and horrible at the same time.
For sure it is. And it's interesting because there's a lot of talk in the spiritual community, I guess, if that's what you can call it, of like infinite love and unity and God's infinite and all this stuff. And sometimes sometimes you get a sense of almost like this inertia behind that, like love is so certain. And I was thinking the other day, if love is such a certainty, that could almost make a conscious individual panic. Like anything forever is, from a human perspective, is intolerable. But it's like if love and unity is certain, then guess what? Love loves you so much, it's gonna let you, if you want to see what bad is, you can that will be experienced too. Just to get a taste of what bad and limitedness is and all this stuff.
Yeah,
Is there something to that? I was toying with this idea the other day.
Ask the question again, Justin.
Oh, I just was wondering what you thought of that. That if love is a certainty, because sometimes you'll talk to somebody and they've been in a good place, and they'll from their own perspective have acquired a resolution that God is good,
Yeah.
or
Okay.
that
Yeah. Right.
reality is good, and then it's like, a question pops up. Well, then what's with all this bad?
Yeah.
And maybe, and just on those terms, I was logically sort of justifying that maybe if that's true, good is so good that it even affords you the opportunity to experience bad.
Yeah, I think that's the only sane way to look at it. That yeah, I'm not a proponent of God is love. I'm not a proponent of enlightenment is love, that awakening is love. That just seems like the real sleazy version of existence somehow.
Well, what is love? First of all, love's a word, right? Like, that's like a word. Some people, when
Yeah.
you say love, they think of like Valentine's cards.
Yeah.
So what do
Yeah.
you mean by love?
Yeah, I think we're projecting our I'm not against personal the love that the Valentine's Day card love. I'm not against that.
Yeah.
I have a family, I have a wife, I have a
Yeah.
son. I love my family, I love my friends. There's an impersonal love, and then there's a personal love. But I think that if we go trouncing about the halls of spirituality and awakening and enlightenment, looking for love in the same way that we do as a father, a brother, a mother, a daughter, a person, I think we're making a fallacy there. I think basically at the end of this, I think that what there is to be recognized is nothing forever. I think that's what there is. I think all of this, I think Brahman, I think the ultimate sort of stance on things is nothing forever, is a kind of an emptiness. And that's scary to think of, so quite naturally we want to think that love is the essence of the universe or whatnot. So no, I don't buy into that. I don't think that love is the bottom line. I do think that love is part of the play, and certainly to be loving in and kind and compassionate in this dream is much needed, is something of value for sure. But I just am not convinced that at the end of the day that God is love. Although I like what you just said there, that God is so much love that he's willing to let you be everything. God is so much love, or that he's willing to let you experience pain and hatred and genocide and war and pollution and environmental degradation and us versus them. He's like okay with it all. And so maybe from that point of view of love, I mean, I think we're getting into semantics and philosophy, which I'm not.
Well, it's a redefinition maybe of the term
Yeah.
love, like what it encompasses and stuff like
Yeah.
that. We've talked a bit about like kind of the beginner stages of kind of like spirituality, but I gotta ask you, since you got your two books, Spiritual Badass 1 and 2.
Yeah.
What does it mean to be a spiritual badass?
Yeah.
I gotta ask it.
Yeah. It's just about finding your own internal courage.
Yeah.
I think courage is really the main ingredient when you get involved in this stuff, and you're really doing it. Courage. Courage at the beginning to say, I want more. Courage to admit that you're hurting, that you're in pain. Courage, and that takes courage.
Yeah.
Because everyone else around you is saying, oh yeah, life is good, I'm great, I love my 9 to 5 job in my cubicle and my 2.5 children and my 1.5 cars in the suburbs. It's all great. I just love it all. And you're
And my
like,
taskmaster and
Yeah.
all the obligations I have.
oh yeah. And they're saying one thing. They're telling you one thing. The head is speaking one thing, but their body and their energy and their heart is speaking something else entirely.
I call it backwardism.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just, and it's funny because I feel like whole groups can engage in it. It's like when
Totally.
one person gets into this thing where, am I only one picking up the passive aggression here? Like, you're telling me pleasant things, but I feel rage beneath the surface.
Well, it takes courage, you see, to extract yourself from that. That's what I mean. All of life is a cult.
Yeah.
All of life is a cult. the cult of making money, the cult of government, the cult of religion, the cult of spirituality, as we've talked, the cult of non-duality. All of it's a cult. So it takes great courage to extract yourself from the herd, to leave the herd behind and just say, I'm going to embark upon a journey that is a solo journey. Courage. And that's what being a badass is. What is a spiritual badass? Is you finally, in whatever amount, on whatever day, and it's an art form. It's not perfect. Some days you'll be more courageous than others. Some days you'll be more of a badass than others. Some days you'll feel like, yeah, I got this shit. And other days you'll feel like you'll be pummeled by life.
Well, you're taking responsibility too. It's like, I'm going to be honest with what I'm actually experiencing instead of deferring all responsibility, which is just not for everybody, man. Some people it's for, and I think the people that resonate with that should pick up your books.
Well, thank you.
But it's interesting, this idea of badassery, like spiritual badassery, and I watched a bunch of your videos, and I won't try to tackle my interpretation of everything you said, but in one of them I got this sense that that it's like, why don't you, like it raised questions in my mind, like you don't really see Jesus telling too many jokes, or like I can't think of a time where Muhammad was like cracking a joke, or maybe the Buddha had, but I can't think of anything. They're not shredding it up on the guitar, like to be able to be spiritual and not just feel like, well, I'm spiritual now, so I got to wear robes and like not have a sense of humor anymore.
I got to be serious. I see so much of that. Yeah, it drives me fucking nuts, man. I see all these, teachers that they got a gray background and they're very dire, very serious. And I had one guy who came on and commented about something, and then I went and looked at his videos, and I was like, holy shit, what are you serving up? You are serving like death on a platter, my friend. there's no life. If you're awake, okay, and I'm not talking about being ultimate ninth stage enlightened here. If you're just awake and you're selling that on your YouTube channel, then why don't you imbue this awakeness with a little bit of humor, with a little bit of color, with a little bit of finesse and like a life, because awakening there should be something that you're breathing it, you're living it, you're having fun with it, because you're not bogged down by the previous weight that you had that got you involved in it to begin with. There's a little bit of freedom. There should be a little bit of heart and humor.
What's honestly more appealing? A person that's like, I'm going to teach you how to eat gray food and develop a nice healthy gray complexion, or somebody that's like, I made a video essay on how The Simpsons can make you enlightened. Like I want to see that. I grew up in the 90s. I'm a pop culture product myself. Tell me how I can glean spirituality from what is around me. Don't give me an ancient book where I got to go collect sticks in the forest to do so. That's cool too. I don't have a problem with that too.
I'll give you. Okay. So first of all, you got to listen to Marilyn Manson. Marilyn Manson is like epic in his ability to like really make you uncomfortable and pull out your darkness, but at the same time, like there's a beautiful elegance to his music. That's one example. Another thing you got to do is you got to watch Breaking Bad. Watch Breaking Bad. You want to see what an existential crisis is, when a human being is confronting their own internal death immediately. Watch Breaking Bad. See how that resonates with you, and see all of the horror there with a person who gets involved in ego and the struggle and the whole thing there. So there's two pop culture references right fucking there that I can totally relate to, that are like what being a spiritual badass really is about. Because if you can't get in touch with, if you are offended by a single by a curse word, that there's no fucking way you're going to transcend your ego. There's no fucking way that you're going to tunnel into the depths where there lies a dragon, where there is fear, where there is this no self fear. You're getting down to the existential little nubbins, you see. And if you don't have enough badass fucking courage to handle a little bit of Breaking Bad, to handle Marilyn Manson, to handle a FUCK word, I don't know how it ain't gonna happen.
Shadow work is like, maybe if it is frightening, a good resource would be some of the writings of Carl Jung or something, you know. But I resonate with what you're saying there. I like Marilyn Manson, and the funny thing about it is, this is going to sound so warped to some people, but I used to have a playlist where it would be like Marilyn Manson and then a Christian rock song, and then like Dusty Springfield, and then, you know, like something techno. Like it's a palate cleanser to some degree. And back in the day, you know, when Marilyn Manson was a youngster and going on all those Donahue interviews, he was undeniably like a friggin' G. Everybody looked so stupid compared to him with their dumb questions about what he was up to. He was just a intelligent artist. Even the idea of incorporating Marilyn Monroe and mixing it with Manson, and, you know, I know it's not everybody's cup of tea.
I mean, that is a perfect, actually, Taoist analogy. Marilyn, the vision of purity, the vision of beauty, the vision of delight and fame and fortune, right? Of all things positive. Manson, serial killer, fucking crazy motherfucker, death, you know, darkness, evil. And there it is. That's the Tao right there, man.
Because when you watch TV, you might be flipping through and see Marilyn Monroe and then Marilyn Manson, and like, oh, well, not all of us watch TV. Okay, everybody's got a stinking TV in their house. What are you talking about? Like, everybody got a phone in their pocket. So it's pointing something out, you know. I mean, he's the same type of guy that, you know, would have a necklace with maybe a cross on it and a Jewish star and a thing, and say, I like all of them. Yeah. Like, he said stuff like that. So
I really like what you said about like being able to transcend being offended. That's like that's something, you know, kind of we deal with on this channel, right? With a lot of the stuff that we do, and it's maybe in some cases we're being on purpose. With some of the stuff that we do because of what you said. I like that idea. But also on the other side, I'm just trying to take the devil's advocate in the root of like, I understand, like I've been to places where I like spiritual retreats where I was like, I felt uncomfortable. Like I've met people with like the dead eye. Have you been around those people? The people that like look through you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, maybe that was your path. Maybe you suffered so much PTSD that you had to kill your ego fully. And like now you walk around like dead-eyed zombie man for the rest of your life. Maybe that's just, you know, it's just that's what reality is served up. You know, so like I kind of like your approach. It's for me it's easier to resonate with. I kind of gravitate to it, but maybe
there's a robustness to being able to weigh all those things that not everybody shares. You know, maybe some people are a little more gun shy and they can't handle so much extremeness or something.
Yeah, and again, it's not for everybody. I'm in a niche, and the way that I teach is very niche. And I trust me, I have days where I feel like, geez, why can't I be more soft spoken like Adyashanti, or why do I have to be the, you know, the way that I am, and I think it just comes back to, well, this is authentically who I am, and I think that I don't need to be concerned. I just need to be real, and there are other people out there who are hurting, who wouldn't have anything to do with spirituality, without having it heard through a potty-mouthed, humorous spiritual badass guy like myself. And what I just said there about myself is true of all teachers. Like all teachers, from Osho to Rupert Spira to the craziest whatever guru out of India that's the you know, pop culture delight and hottest thing, right? It's fine. It's all good. It all serves a purpose.
But there's teachings that talk about going with the flow, letting the river take you. And so, like, what if some days you are really zenned out and you're able to be effective and even helpful from that place? Man, you're a calm spirit today. It's nice being around you. But then you're a pull up to a car accident and you can't zen your way into being helpful in that situation. You know what I mean? Like, different situations. And then sometimes I think that with, you know, sometimes you'll see somebody that seems to have positioned themselves so they're always in Shangri-La. Like they're always, you know, surrounded by pillows, and they never would encounter chaos like that, and that's fine too. But for most of us that are working class folks that encounter angry bosses sometimes, or angry peers, or angry wives, or troublesome people, it's they should pick up at least go check out your YouTube video and see what you have to say there. We'll leave links to that and everything.
Oh, no, no, they should do more than that. They should buy all 4 of my books.
Yeah.
You talk a lot about non-duality on your YouTube channel. I had one question about it. What do you think is like the biggest thing that people get wrong about non-duality?
That ego goes away.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because most non-dual teachers, most of the popular non-dual teachers, and they err on the side of speaking from the breathy, calm, beatific point of view. And there's, again, nothing wrong with that, and it has its place. The larger overall problem, though, is that now you've created the expectation that this is what awakening is. It's this soft-spoken, demure, very quiet, without an ego space. So it doesn't leave any room, you see, for you to enfold and to embrace all of the flaws of the ego, which needs to happen in the process, where you look at all of your flaws, all your wounds, all your problems, all the rest of that, and you've got to say, well, that's welcome into awakening as well. All of those things are welcome here as well. So they unconsciously, they don't. I don't think they're doing this on purpose, and many of them speak to that truth that ego doesn't go away. They all will, even intellectually and verbally, say that. But again, the meta message, the message between the lines, is that even though I'm telling you that ego doesn't go away and that you must embrace your flaws and whatnot, their body and their language is speaking from a position of such deep relaxation and such deep like in the flow type of thing, that the viewer can't help, and the people that are sitting with this person can't help but to think that that's exactly what awakening is.
Yeah.
And that's the flaw with non-duality. Here's what I'm saying. I would love to see some of these teachers just kind of like freak out a little bit, like I do in my videos. Like some of my videos are like not like I put music in the background. It's sort of like not so peaceful. It's charging. It can be. I did one video a long time ago where I came on and I taught while I was sick. Like I was just feeling like shit. I'm like, here's what it's really like.
Yeah.
It's not all beauty and puppy dogs and rainbows, So
the human frailty is always present, other than somebody that's really pulling off a crazy magic trick. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's all right. Yeah. Let me see your flaws.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Let me I get it. You need to teach about finding this peaceful, aware space, of course. But let me see your flaws too, because I'm speaking hypothetically about all the people watching, because I know, because I was there, because my flaws are tremendous, and I don't feel like what you're feeling. I feel unworthy. I feel unloved. I feel like shit. Yeah. And how am I gonna reconcile that? Yeah. With the way that you're, so show me your flaws, show me your underbelly, my friend, so that I feel like I've got a chance.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Beautiful.
No, that's
beautiful.
Nailed it.
Well said, Jay. That's
Thanks.
I think that was that's the type of thing that I think a message everyone can kind of get on board for. Yeah. I guess my only real last question would be, I guess we're getting on here, would be just to let our community know what you got going on, where they can find you, and we'll wrap her up.
I'm doing a massive retreat in Costa Rica with thousands of followers at this huge temple. Yeah, and bring as much money as you possibly can, because we'll be handing out baskets. So ayahuasca retreat. So we'll all stoned off our asses.
I'm there. Let's
It's gonna be
go.
glorious, and we're gonna get in tune with the seventh chakra of the earth, and we're gonna have this like global meditation, and it's gonna change things.
Only want people that are serious. That's why tickets are $10,000.
Yeah, tickets are $10,000. I don't know, man. I'm just, I write books, and I try to eke out a living doing that. If you've enjoyed this interview, check out my book, Spirituality for Badasses. It's fun, it's humorous, it's down to earth, it's real. Like myself, like these two guys here. And not only that, I think that it just may push you another step or two along the path and make you feel like, yeah, fuck, I got a chance at this.
Okay,
yeah, man.
Great.
Awesome.
Thanks so much for joining us, man.
Sure. Yeah, it's a pleasure hanging out with both you brothers. Peace.
You as well.